Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. Welcome. And we do this little broadcast every weekday, and I'm very happy to see you. And if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you will know that you can type your questions or comments on any platform that you happen to be watching it on. They will show up here in my chat room and we can interact directly, which to me is the great pleasure of this particular broadcast. And I think I've noticed that, oh, and hello to Reverend Mary in the chat room. Good to see you, Mary. I think that my hello is getting cut off from the live stream, so I'm going to have to get used to starting just a second or two later. Hello to Janet, and hello to Fluffy in the chat room. Good to see you. But I've been very much enjoying Midday with Reverend Don, and I love to see you all. I love to have this time with you, and it's been a very nice project. Hello to Jesse in the chat room. Good to see you, Jesse. And hello to Raven Wolf in the chat room. Good to see you, Raven Wolf. So it's been quite a delightful time, and I'm sure it's going to continue to be. And hello to Jason in the chat room. Good to see you, Jason. Hello to Raven in the chat room. Good to see you, Raven. And Raven Wolf says, "Looking good, Lord Don. Thank you. I'm feeling good. I had a wonderful day yesterday. I had a visit from my son from out of town. It was a bit of a surprise visit in that it was not planned in advance. It was planned a few hours in advance. On Wednesday night, we were talking, and he decided that he would be able to stop by on Thursday. Originally, he was going to come at 5 in the morning. Then it became 9 in the morning. And then it became 1 in the afternoon, but that worked out beautifully, and he stayed till after midnight. We had a wonderful, wonderful afternoon together. We went to a hibachi food truck, which I don't know that I knew that there were such things as hibachi food trucks, particularly in Danville, Illinois. There it was, and it was wonderful. I believe the name of the company was Taka, and it was out on it was south of Danville, but still in the Danville area, near Grossland, and it was incredibly good. I was very pleased. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure I've been equally pleased with hibachi before. I got the scallops, and they were very fresh. They were delightful. And Mary says, yes, this is a 6-year for you. Lots of family interactions. Thank you, Mary. That's a good year. The 6 is very much the number of family. It's the number of creature comforts. It's the number of home. And of course, it's the number of the goddess Venus. So it can also sometimes have to do with romance and things like that. But it's particularly dealing with those things that are important to you in that sense of family and security. So yeah, a 6 year is a good year. And we've talked about how that age of 60 in a number of situations is thought of as a reset in traditional Chinese culture, because you've run through the entire great cycle of the animal signs and return to the beginning of the 60-year cycle. It's a reset. In Western astrology, you have passed through your Saturn return, which in its own way, your second Saturn return in its own way is a reset. I thought I'd gotten through my Saturn return by cooperating with it. And it still really moved me from one place to another, which is what Saturn return does. It puts you where you need to be. So I'm grateful that it did so. But it somehow managed to still be unexpected, despite my strong efforts to prepare for it and cooperate with it and all that good stuff. But I feel very much that I am where I should be. And I love the fact that you're here with me. And, you know, there are many changes in my life, but the things that are important are still here. And that includes the people. So I feel very good going forward. I think a lot of exciting things are coming. One of the things that's coming is the Parliament of the World's Religions. And by the time we're done, you'll probably be sick of hearing about the Parliament. But maybe not, because there's so much there and so fascinating to people who are spiritual. It's created for spiritual people. It's the Olympics of religion. And hello to Sir Eric in the chat room. Good to see you, Sir Eric. In the month of August, leading up to the actual Parliament in Chicago, we will be having here on Pagan World a lot of programming from past parliaments, because we have possibly more film from past parliaments, certainly film from more past parliaments than anyone else, I think, because we started filming them all the way back in '98, I believe it was. And although only a little of that film is online, it is online. We have a good bit that needs still to be copied over. Hello, Kazan in the chat room. Good to see you, Kazan. And one of the reasons is we weren't doing a lot of online video in 1998, 1999. It wasn't yet a thing, but we did have the presence of mind to do the videotaping. And we've still got it. And it's in, of course, an old format. But the subsequent parliaments, we didn't get video from Barcelona because Sir Edward went there, but he was ill throughout the entire event and not able to get the footage that we would have liked. But in Australia, we have all kinds of footage from the next parliament and the parliaments thereafter. So we have a lot of interesting things for you. And hello to Brenda in the chat room. Good to see you. And hello to Atotsoli. I apologize because I don't think I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but Otototsli, or something close to that. Hello, it's good to see you. Ototosli is Adoba. Beautiful name. And oh, this is interesting. Reverend Ravenwolf says, my house decided to get active again, so I have motion systems in place in case an alarm goes off. And what Reverend Ravenwolf is referring to, I believe, is psychic activity in his home. Reverend Ravenwolf is a medium. In fact, he is. They are the author of Medium 365, available from CorellianPublishing.com, The Year in the Life of a Medium, a year-long course in mediumship. Wonderful book. You can get your copy today. But one of the things that has happened are physical manifestations in the home that have occurred, which had not been common previously. And this is, and Mary says, remember the doors in her house? Yes. When this first happened, we were in my Monday night chat room on video, and we saw the doors opening and closing and other things, could hear things going on. And this was, it was quite remarkable. And, you know, things like this really do happen. I mean, it's not just in the movies, but it's not that common to happen, particularly so much all at once. It was in connection to a death in the family. But because Reverend Wolf is a medium, this sort of physical thing can manifest relatively easily. It's very interesting. And, sometimes it's disruptive, sometimes it's not. Always, if you're having physical manifestations and you're not happy with them, the way to stop them is by grounding the energy. It can only manifest using the energy that it needs to manifest. And because its origin is in the spirit world, it has to use the energy that's here to be able to manifest, generally speaking. And if you ground out that energy, particularly something like this, which is often poltergeist related. Poltergeists are typified by things moving around, doors opening and closing, lights turning on and off, and often are very much associated with ungrounded energy. Sometimes they are connected directly to spirit activity, which is slightly different. Sometimes they're just the ungrounded energy. I remember when my cousin Gloria passed, her caregiver said that for weeks afterwards she was having visitations from Lady Gloria, which she knew from things like what would be a poltergeist experience, lights turning on and off. Apparently she would see Gloria peek around doorways and giggle at her, which is actually a very Gloria thing to have done. So these things can be quite interesting. Hello to Jeanette in the chat room. And Ravenwolf says that they have not picked up on any names, just energy, and it's just in the upstairs in the master bedroom, the landing, and the stairs. And Mary Cavalcante says, hello, Lord Don. Sorry I'm late. Welcome, Mary. Anytime you join is a pleasure. My son and I were comparing notes about our houses. My son has moved into a 10,000 square foot house in Michigan, which has an interesting background. I won't go into all of it. And this house has some interesting things in its background. One of the most interesting visible things are that a number of the doorknobs have been crushed, which, is not something you typically see. In my son's house, there was someone who committed suicide in the house when it was not occupied. And this unfortunate person regrettably shot themselves in the upstairs, and nobody ever cleaned up the mess. It's still there, which, of course, was an unpleasant surprise for my son and his family. But I think people don't realize crime scenes don't get cleaned up by the authorities. And in an unoccupied house, there was no one to clean it up. And Kazan says, I will not be able to attend the Parliament of World's Religions in Chicago this summer. I wonder if someone will post the videos in Magic TV or Pagan World in August. I would love to watch this. I pretty much guarantee that's what we will do. Every Parliament we've gone to, we've covered it in video and sometimes in audio, always so that people can share. So that will be happening, absolutely. There will be a coverage of some of the presentations. There will be interviews. There'll be commentary. There'll be many things coming from the Parliament. So that weekend, or that week rather, it starts with the parade on the 13th of August, continues through that week till the end. Watch for special programming, quite possibly live from the Parliament or else shortly after. I'm pretty sure it will be live if we can. And in the past, we have been able to. We broadcast live from Australia in the Parliament held in Melbourne. One of the fun things we did is we set up a table one day in the hallway with our radio equipment and interviewed just people passing by who were interested in being interviewed, as well as some of the pagan luminaries who were present, such as River Higginbotham. we did a lot of interesting reporting at that particular parliament. But we always try to. In the month of August, here on Midday with Rev Don, I'm probably going to be talking about some of my adventures at the Parliament and some of the interesting people I've gotten to interview, either during the Parliament or after, who had been at the Parliament, and just my personal stories of these experiences. Probably the most impactful person to me associated with the Parliament was the Honorable Olivia Robertson, the Most Reverend the Honorable Olivia Robertson of the Fellowship of Isis, who I got to know fairly well over the years and got to interview many times over the years, both on radio and in video. I'm hoping as we go through some of our morgue here, we will find radio interviews. Because for those who don't know, we were doing radio long before we were doing video, because the technology had not really made video attainable yet. But we did tremendous amounts of audio programming. And we have some fascinating interviews in those audio tapes that I would love to see us get updated for the modern internet, including with people who are no longer living to give new interviews. So I'm hoping that as we go forward, much of our older material will also be recycled into our newer workings. But with the Parliament, the first modern Parliament was in 1893. I beg your pardon, the first Parliament was in 1893. The first modern Parliament was in 1993. We have had at least one Corellian present at every Parliament that's been held. If you recall, in a previous broadcast, I actually showed the ticket to the 1893 event, which was saved by my family from attending the exposition, which is where the Parliament occurred. And I have always understood that, yes, they were there. Now, the first Parliament was run very differently. There's not a record of the people who were in attendance for it, only the presenters. But I always understood that Caroline was present. And having the ticket, in my opinion, backs that up at least as much as it can be backed up, unless she actually shows up in a photograph, which she might very well. There were photographs, but not many. But in the modern parliaments, first Sir Edward and slowly more and more Corellians have attended all of them. And of course, that first one in '93, we don't have video from that, partly because Edward was on the staff, not just attending. And so there was no coverage in that way. Although I believe there was radio coverage outside of the Parliament with some of the people there, particularly after the fact. He could tell us more about that. I was there, but my son was at that time very young, and I unfortunately was preoccupied with that. Edward had been telling me about the Parliament for years. He'd been working with them for at least 2 years, preparing for the event. And we had tried to tell the Chicago pagan community. Almost all of them were certain that nothing like that could ever possibly happen. The world's religions could never come together for a single Parliament. They laughed, they derided the idea until it hit the network news. And then suddenly they were all about it, which is good. But they could have been so much more involved had they not made the assumption that it could not possibly be true. But I was getting reports from Edward for 2 years before this happened of his adventures with the Parliament, and every day during the Parliament, he would call me at least once to talk about what was happening. The most exciting, well, there were a number of exciting things in the Parliament. Lady Olivia had an exciting time. Um, I believe that that first parliament had a governing council. I'm not certain I'm using the right word, but I believe it was only 8 people. She was one of them, and all of them made an address at the opening plenary. And Lady Olivia's address was absolutely quintessentially Olivia. It was, "May the goddess bless the flowers and the bees and all the living things in the earth," which is absolutely Olivia and absolutely Icean. But apparently some of the people from other religions just couldn't wrap their heads around this concept. There were apparently a number of comments, and no sooner did she leave the stage, as I understand the story, than security asked her to leave the area because a threat had been made on her life. They first came to her and said, "Please come with us, ma'am." And she said, "Is this because I'm Irish?" And they said, "No, ma'am, there's been a threat on your life." And she said, "Oh, Muslims." And they said, "No, ma'am, Christians." And that's how she told the story. And they ended up escorting her out of the room for her own safety, so she wasn't able to take part in the socializing that followed the opening statements. Olivia never went back to another parliament, and her statement was she felt that it was a wonderful experience, and once was enough. She had done her part. But I can't help but think that event was part of that too. But the Iceans have been involved with the parliaments throughout the modern era, usually with an Icean mystery play. And there was one at that parliament in '93. Coming out of that parliament, Olivia gave Edward a charge, which became the Pagan Interfaith Embassy. And that's his story to tell, but that's one of the big things that came out of that. And the Pagan Interfaith Embassy was very active for many years and still exists, and still does some things from time to time. And its purpose was to bring pagans together toward the parliament. And it did a number of things over the course of the years. When I went to the parliament in Australia in whatever year it was. There have been a number of them now. But I did so specifically in my capacity as a member of the Pagan Interfaith Embassy. And I've done that a few times. And Edward as well. And there have been other officers of the Pagan Interfaith Embassy. The late Archpriestess Laura Jane's daughter held a position there. Several other people have as well over the years. And there are positions for a certain length of time, but we've done a lot through the Pagan Interfaith Embassy. But the Iceans usually have a mystery play, and following the '93 Parliament, starting in '94, Lady Olivia asked the Archpriestess Dina Buddha in Chicago and Archpriestess Ruth Dillon to organize an annual American Icean convention, which they did. They did it jointly the first year. Thereafter, Lady Dina organized it. It still goes on in Chicago to this day. It occurs in September, and I highly recommend it if you have a chance to go. And the centerpiece of this convention is the Icean mystery play. The Icean mystery plays are largely unlike anything else. They are the liturgy of the Fellowship of Isis. They are considered to be, quote, divinely inspired. They draw upon mythology of all sorts in a quintessentially Icean way. And Lady Dina, alone among the Icean high clergy, staged these as full-blown theatrical productions with costuming, elaborate rehearsal, blocking, and choreography. They always began with a dance, and sometimes there would be more than one. And these dances were breathtaking, and many of them have been caught on film, although not necessarily in our archives. Gitanjali Singh, the Princess Gitanjali Singh, I believe has a number of them. I've talked to her about possibly being an interviewee on this program, but with everything that's happened, there's been difficulty setting it up. But the Dowager Princess Gitanjali Singh, the widow of the Prince Mubin Ahmed, very fascinating woman. Among her other things, she has been an Icean priestess, and she has the most fascinating background, which includes Native American, East Indian, African American, and European backgrounds, all of which she honors in her life. Amazing woman. But she filmed a lot of those Icean conventions. But the Icean mystery plays are absolutely beautiful. And the one that I most, well, there are two that I most remember in terms of the choreography. The Mystery of Isis and Osiris, which began with the priestesses entering a completely darkened room with lit candles and dancing in the dark with these candles. So that all you could really see were the candles moving in the darkness. And they were in little glass orbs. And it was absolutely beautiful. And then the lights slowly came up and the dance continued. And usually in these dances, it would include a salute to the four quarters as part of the dance. And the priestesses raised their candles to each quarter. It was beautiful. The other one I remember, which was probably the most remarkable one that was ever done in the Chicago FOI conventions, was the mystery of Persephone and Hades. And I could go into great detail about this play, because there were many things that were of interest, including the fact that we realized after that we must be very careful how we chose the mystery play, because it played out in each of our lives. And in this case, it was death and rebirth. And everyone involved experienced some sort of death and rebirth. And the actor or the priest who played Hades, in fact, died and had literal death and rebirth. It was very, well, it was a clue by four. And thereafter, we were very mindful of what we picked for those mystery plays. But the dance, the story begins with 50 nymphs on the plains of Etna. And as the narrator, I got to name all 50 nymphs. If I remember correctly, that preceded and partly coincided with the dance. There obviously were not 50 priestesses dancing, but there were 20. And if you've ever seen these twirly ribbon items that are sometimes used in dance, that's what they danced with. Each priestess had, I believe, 2 of these ribbon twirlers with long metallic ribbons. And it was just, and they were in Grecian costume. It was just beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful and memorable. Lady Dina was a wonderful choreographer, a very artistic human being, and a wonderful archpriestess. And you can experience some of this on Magic TV. We do have some video from some of those conventions. We have a lot of interviews from the conventions, including both interviews and presentations from Lady Dina. And of course, interviews and presentations from Lady Olivia. In our Magic TV at YouTube. And some of it has appeared on Pagan World, and more, I'm sure, will in the future. So with that, I see we've come to the end of our half hour. This has been a lovely conversation with you. Thank you all for joining me. I love all of you. I love spending this time with you. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And let us close, as we always do, with our prayer. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for the wonderful things in our lives. We thank you for the joyful, beautiful, happy things that come to us. We thank you also for the challenges that come to us. But we're a little more enthusiastic about the happy things. But we ask you to help us to always see the joy and happiness that is present in the challenges, so that we can be equally enthusiastic in all parts of our lives. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love and respect, and knowing you're always with us, but from respect. We thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And I thank you for your presence. I love you all. I'll look forward to seeing you on Monday. Some of you I'll see tomorrow night at the Evening with the Corellian Ancestors at my Patreon at revdonlewis.com. If you want to come to that and you're not a member of my Patreon, you can easily join the Patreon, again at revdonlewis.com. And I will see you here at midday on Reverend Don, on midday at Reverend Don on Monday. And I'll look forward to that. And until next time, may you be blessed now and always.